He forged my name, on camera, then sued me for $320,000, like I'd just roll over and pay it. I lost 5 contracts in 3 days. Even my own son asked if we'd lose the house. But what they didn't know? I had a secret archive of 4K job site footage, 15 years worth. Every lie they told, every dollar they stole, was caught in perfect detail. I just hadn't pressed play yet. Now the countdown's on. And when that screen lights up in court, they'll regret everything. Because the truth isn't just coming, it's already downloaded. My name is Ethan Whitaker, and I'm 45 years old. Most mornings you'll find me at the yard by 6, checking trucks and crews before the sun hits the horizon. The smell of fresh-cut lumber mingles with coffee steam rising from my chipped mug, the same one I've had since starting with just a rusty pickup and big dreams. Jeff Morton, my senior partner, and Ryan Hale, our accounts manager, used to feel like younger brothers. These days, their sideways glances at quarterly meetings tell a different story. Real owners deserve real shares, Jeff muttered last week, Ryan nodding along like always. But what they don't know is I've got 15 years of time-stamped CCTV footage from every major job site. Plus backup hard drives locked away safe. Trust without receipts is a loaded nail gun. But let me start from the beginning. It was just another Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. I was going through invoices, my reading glasses sliding down my nose, while the autumn sun warmed my office. The courier delivery seemed routine enough, until I saw the return address from Parkman & Associates law office. My hands weren't exactly steady as I sliced open that envelope. The contents hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest, a lawsuit claiming I owed Jeff and Ryan $320,000 in unpaid partnership shares. $320,000. The number kept swimming in front of my eyes as I flipped through page after page of allegations. You know that moment when your mind refuses to process what you're seeing? That's where I was. According to these papers, I'd been systematically siphoning profits, cooking the books, and denying them their rightful partnership stake. The same guys I'd given corner offices to, the ones whose Christmas bonuses could have bought decent used cars. I speed-dialed Mike Harrison, my attorney since the company's early days. Mike, you need to see this. Now. My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from someone else. Email it over, he said. I heard papers shuffling on his end while I scanned everything. The silence stretched as he read. Finally, Ethan, this is meticulously prepared. They've built quite a paper trail. That measured tone in Mike's voice. I'd heard it before when he was about to deliver bad news to clients. My stomach knotted up. Remember when you brought Jeff on? I asked, more to myself than Mike. Kid fresh out of business school, eager to prove himself. I saw something in him, gave him responsibilities way above his pay grade. The memory of Jeff's first day hit me. How he'd shown up an hour early, wearing a suit that was trying too hard to look expensive. Then Ryan came along 2 years later, skilled with numbers, quick with a spreadsheet. I'd trusted them both with the accounts, let them handle client meetings. Hell, I'd even paid them more than industry standard because I wanted them invested in our success. Some investment that turned out to be, you ever notice how betrayal cuts deeper than just money? It's like they weren't just going after my bank account. They were trying to rewrite who I was. 25 years of straight dealing, of looking clients in the eye and keeping every promise I made. And now these papers painted me as some kind of con man. I grabbed my phone and started photographing every page, zooming in on dates, signatures, exhibits. Each click of the camera felt like loading ammunition. Through my office window, I could see our trucks, lined up in the yard, exhaust vapor curling in the late afternoon air. The same trucks that carried my name, a name that meant something in this town. The court calendar showed an initial hearing in 6 weeks. 6 weeks to defend everything I'd built since I was 20. My eyes kept drifting to that date, circled in harsh red ink by someone at the law office. 25 years of reputation balanced on one manila folder. My phone buzzed. A text from Jeff. Ready to settle? I could almost see his smirk through those 3 words. The same smirk he probably wore while planning this ambush, while deciding that everything I'd given him wasn't enough. The same damn smirk he'd worn last week in our management meeting, right before voting against the year-end bonuses for our crew foreman. Any instructions? Mike's voice brought me back. Yeah, I said, my jaw so tight it hurt. Don't respond. Yet. I need to review some records first. The dial tone after hanging up seemed to echo in my suddenly too quiet office. Outside, another truck fired up, ready for the afternoon shift. The sound I'd always loved, that diesel rumble of honest work getting done, now felt like a countdown clock. My phone buzzed again. Jeff, still waiting for an answer. Morning hit like a sledgehammer. 3 cancellation emails sat in my inbox, each one citing those recent allegations like they were reading from the same script. You ever watch dominoes fall? That's what my schedule did. One project after another, tumbling down. My drywall crew stood around their truck, checking phones and shooting worried glances at the office. Bobby, my lead guy, finally walked over. Boss, what's the word on the Henderson job? His face said he already knew. Postponed, I managed. Let me make some calls. But my phone was already buzzing with a supplier wanting to review terms. 20 years of on-time payments, and suddenly they needed extra assurances. I found myself staring at the wall calendar, those red X's marking off completed jobs, now looking more like countdown marks. 59 days until court. Each morning brought new fires to put out. Clients wanting meetings, vendors adjusting credit lines, and the worst, watching my crew's confidence crack one sideways glance at a time. Then Tom Weber called. Now Tom had been with me since I was working out of that old pickup. He'd trusted me with 3 custom homes and never questioned a single invoice. Ethan, he said, voice careful, I'm hearing things. Need some assurances about the Palmer Street project. My throat felt like I'd swallowed sawdust. Tom, you know me. 20 years. I do know you. He cut in. That's why I'm calling, instead of canceling. But these allegations, they're specific, Ethan. Later that afternoon, I sat across from Mike in his office, watching him lay out printed emails and court filings like he was dealing cards in a losing hand. They time this perfectly, he said, tapping a document, right when you're bidding the Mason development. Jeff and Ryan have been planning this for months. How bad? I asked, though I already knew. Mike leaned back, choosing his words. They've got altered purchase orders, backdated agreements, even photos of you at their partnership meetings. And their filing timeline. He shook his head. Discovery windows are already closing. We've got maybe 2 weeks to gather counter evidence. I pulled out my notebook. The same one I'd used to sketch my first job site. Okay, let's break this down. I want every bank statement from the last 3 years. Every vendor receipt. Project binders, especially the ones they managed. That's thousands of documents, Mike warned. Then I better get started. Back at the office, I set up a war room. Remember those all-nighters in your 20s, when you thought you could power through anything? That's what I was facing now, except I wasn't 20 anymore, and the stakes were a hell of a lot higher than making rent. I created a timeline on the wall. Bank deposits, major projects, dates when Jeff and Ryan's roles expanded. Every night, I'd park myself there after the yard cleared out, sorting through papers until my eyes burned. The coffee maker became my best friend again, just like in the early days. But here's the thing about reputation. Once people start doubting, facts take a back seat to whispers. I caught wind of conversations at supply houses, saw the sidelong looks at the lumberyard. Guys I'd known for decades suddenly had meetings when I stopped by. That evening, I stood in the darkened office, staring at my investigation wall. The yard outside was dead quiet. No compressors, no saws, no shouts across the concrete. Just silence and doubt, spreading like mold after a flood. My phone lit up with a calendar reminder. Court prep day, 1. 59 days remaining. Below it, 3 more cancellation notices waited. I thought about Jeff's smirk, about the careful way he'd managed certain accounts. What else had he planted while playing the loyal partner? The lock clicked heavily as I secured the office door. In the reflection of the darkened window, I saw what others were seeing. Not the builder who'd never missed a deadline, but a man under suspicion. My chest tightened as another text came through. Another client, reconsidering their options. Dawn crept through the office blinds as I hunched over another stack of ledgers, my coffee long cold. You know that feeling when something's wrong, but you can't put your finger on it? That's what these numbers were doing to me. Every entry was precise, balanced, too perfect. Like someone had gone back with digital whiteout and cleaned up history. I'd been at it since 4 a.m., yellow sticky notes spreading across my desk like a paper virus. Each one marked another mistake that somehow pointed back at me. Funny how errors only showed up in accounts I rarely touched, the ones Jeff and Ryan managed directly. "Hey, Mr. Whitaker!" My assistant Sarah's voice startled me. "Brought you fresh coffee. You look like you could use it." "Thanks, Sarah." I rubbed my eyes. "Any word from Portland Supply?" She shifted uncomfortably. "They want payment in advance now." "Perfect." "Another vendor spooked by the lawsuit." I nodded, trying not to let her see how much that stung. "Okay, process the wire. And Sarah, pull all their invoices from the last 2 years. Every single one. The morning became a blur of bank statements and supplier records. Mike, my attorney, had warned me his retainer wouldn't be cheap. But watching my checking account drain toward red still felt like a punch to the gut. Each time I authorized another payment, I thought about my mortgage, my crew's paychecks, the equipment loans that wouldn't wait for justice. That evening, I tried to keep things normal at home. Made dinner, asked about homework, pretended the weight of $320,000 wasn't sitting on my shoulders. But kids, they see right through you. Tommy caught me at the kitchen table around midnight. Surrounded by signature pages I was scanning for irregularities. At 15, he's got his mother's direct gaze. "Dad," he said quietly, "are we going to lose the house?" My pen froze mid-note. In 20 years of business, I'd never felt so cornered. "Nobody," I managed, hoping he couldn't hear the tremor in my voice. "We're going to be fine. I promise." He nodded, but I saw doubt in his eyes. The same doubt I was fighting every morning in the mirror. After he went back to bed, I opened another spreadsheet, vision blurring as I compared signature after signature. Something was off about them. Inconsistent pressure points, varying slants, like someone trying too hard to copy my hand. But proving it? That was another matter entirely. My war room wall had become a maze of red string and timestamps, project photos bordered by court dates, discovery deadlines highlighted in warning colors. 53 days left, and each one felt shorter than the last. Around 2 a.m. my laptop chimed. New email from Jeff's attorney. Settlement pathways. Discuss? My cursor hovered over the delete button as exhaustion whispered, maybe it's time to cut losses. Maybe pride isn't worth this fight. But then I thought about Tommy's question. About my crew's families. About every client who trusted me to build their dreams on a foundation of honest work. Settlement meant admitting guilt. Meant letting lies win. I closed the laptop without replying, the screen's glow fading to leave me in darkness. Outside my office window, the yard's security lights cast long shadows across idle equipment. Remember when you were a kid and the monsters under your bed seemed real? These shadows felt just as threatening. But they weren't coming from imaginary beasts. They were stretching from every decision, every trust I'd given to men who'd planned to bury me with it. "You don't look so good, boss." This from Mark, my foreman, who'd caught me dozing at my desk. I must have drifted off sometime before sunrise. "Thanks for the update," I grunted, straightening papers. "What's our concrete delivery looking like?" "About that," Mark shifted his hard hat. "They're asking for certified funds now." Said something about current circumstances. I pinched the bridge of my nose, fighting back a headache that felt permanent. Certified funds meant immediate payment, meant another hit to our dwindling cash reserves. "Get me the numbers. I'll wire it over." Another red mark on the timeline. Discovery deadline, 53 days. Another email notification blinking. Settlement offer, time sensitive. Another signature page that looked just wrong enough to make me doubt everything except the growing hole in my accounts. Mike's office always smelled like leather and coffee, but today, it just made my stomach turn. He spread the settlement papers across his desk, pointing at numbers that blurred together. "Look, Ethan," he said, tapping the bottom line. "They're asking for 240 instead of the full 320. It's not ideal, but not ideal?" The laugh that came out of me sounded strange. "Mike, that's every penny I've saved since I was 25. That's my kids' college fund, my retirement, everything I built from sleeping in that damn truck." He leaned back, choosing his words carefully. "I understand, but we have to consider the legal fees through trial, the continued impact on your business relationships." He slid another paper forward. "And there's no guarantee a judge will see through their documentation." My hands, these calloused hands that had framed houses and poured foundations and signed honest contracts for decades, now felt foreign to me, like they belonged to someone else, someone who couldn't be trusted with a nail gun or a signature. "Give me the weekend," I managed. Back at my office, I opened my email and started typing. "Dear Mr. Harrison, Jeff's attorney, regarding your settlement proposal." The cursor blinked at me like a metronome counting down my surrender. I remembered the first time I'd taken Jeff to bid a major renovation. He'd been fresh out of business school, all sharp suits and theoretical knowledge. I'd taught him how to read a client's hesitation, how to build trust through straight talk and fair numbers. "The art of the business isn't in the math," I'd told him. "It's in the handshake that follows." Ryan had been different, eager, almost manic to prove himself. I'd spent countless evenings talking him through project timelines, teaching him that reputation grows like hardwood, slow, solid. Worth the wait. Now those same lessons were being used to strangle me. The draft email sat there, unmarked hours passing, as I paced between my desk and the window. Even if I settled, even if I paid their blood money, the whispers wouldn't stop. You heard about Whitaker? Paid out on fraud charges? Must have been guilty, right? Why else would he settle? My phone buzzed. A text from my wife. Coming home soon? I should have been there hours ago, should have been, helping Tommy with his geometry homework or hearing about Annie's soccer practice. Instead, I was sitting in our break room, the fluorescent light humming in sync with my skull, staring at that damn email draft. The settlement numbers swam through my head. $240,000 to make it go away. To admit, without saying the words, that maybe I wasn't the honest builder everyone thought. To let Jeff and Ryan win with their fabricated papers and practiced lies. My cursor hovered over send. The clock on my laptop read 11:43 p.m. 49 days until our first court date. I thought about every client who'd trusted me with their dreams. Young families stretching their savings for a first home edition. Retirees investing their golden years in that perfect sunroom. Each project built on a foundation of trust that a settlement would silently crack. The fluorescent light flickered like even it couldn't bear witness to this moment of weakness. I closed the laptop, the unsent email vanishing into darkness. Sleep first, decision tomorrow. Maybe clarity would come with morning coffee and a fresh look at our options. My phone lit up the room as I stood to leave. Evidence review, 7:00 a.m. Tomorrow's calendar reminder felt like another weight added to an already crushing load. What could one more early morning of document diving possibly reveal that I hadn't already seen? How many more signatures could I compare? How many more ledger entries could I cross-reference before accepting that they'd planned this too well? I pulled into the yard at 6:15 a.m. before even the sun had clocked in. The gravel crunched under my tires. A sound that used to mean another honest day's work ahead. Now it felt like walking on broken promises. Mark Denton's weathered F-150 rolled in right behind me, those steel-toe boots of his hitting the ground before his truck had fully settled. He carried 2 cups of coffee, steam rising in the pre-dawn chill. In 15 years, I'd never seen him show up without that second cup when he knew I'd be early. "You look like hammered shit," he said, handing me the coffee. "That's Mark, straight as a level, sharp as a nail gun. Heard about the lawsuit. Those ungrateful punks really think they can make it stick?" I took a long sip, letting the familiar bitter warmth steady my hands. They've got paperwork that looks real enough to fool anyone who doesn't know better. Client contracts, profit distributions, fake partnership agreements, all of it backdated and doctored just right. My jaw clenched. 45 days until we face a judge, Mark. And right now, their lies look prettier than my truth. Mark's eyes narrowed beneath his worn ball cap. He didn't say anything for a moment, just stood there studying me like he would a problematic foundation. Then he walked over to the steel cabinet in the corner of my office, the one I'd had reinforced years ago after that break-in scare. He rapped his knuckles against the metal. "Insurance," he said simply. "Cameras. Every site, every day." He turned to face me. "You remember why we started doing that?" The memory hit me like fresh-cut lumber smell. That liability claim from '08 that almost sank us. Some weekend warrior claimed we'd left a site unsecured, said his kid got hurt playing on our equipment. The timestamps from our first security camera saved us. Caught the father cutting his own chain on our fence. "Holy shit," I whispered, fumbling for my keys. The lock clicked open, revealing stacks of hard drives, each labeled with site locations and dates. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady with purpose. "Help me get these organized," I said, pulling out the drives from the past year. "We need chain of custody documentation. Everything by the book." Mark nodded, already grabbing an empty banker's box. "I'll get the evidence forms from my truck. Still got 'em from that copper theft case last spring." For the next hour, we logged every drive. Serial numbers, dates, locations. I created an index sheet while Mark photographed each step of the transfer. You learn these things in construction. Document everything. Assume nothing. Funny how those lessons circle back around. I cleared space on my desk for the computer setup, connecting external drives like I was assembling scaffold. Methodical, checked and rechecked. The workstation hummed to life, ready to ingest hours of footage. "Remember to mark the time codes," Mark said, adjusting his cap. "Anything with those two on site, especially near the office trailers or during off hours." I grabbed the whiteboard marker and wrote 45 days in big letters, underlining it twice. Below that, I started a timeline. Drive retrieval, footage review, clip selection, legal submission. Mark dimmed the lights to cut screen glare while I pulled up the first site folder. July 2022. Riverside Medical Build. The cursor hovered over play. My coffee had gone cold, forgotten. In my mind, I saw Jeff and Ryan's faces, not as they looked in the lawsuit papers, but years ago. Young, eager, supposedly grateful for the chance I'd given them. The memory of trust mixed with something sharp and combustible, like gasoline fumes at dawn. I glanced at Mark, who gave me a single nod. "Let's see what stories these cameras tell," he said quietly. My finger rested on the mouse button, ready to press play. Everything I'd built, my reputation, my future, my family's security, might hinge on what these drives contained. The screen waited, black and patient, like a confession booth for other people's sins. The first few hours of footage crawled by like watching paint dry. Just empty job trailers and the occasional worker passing through. But I'd learned patience the hard way in this business. You can't rush concrete, and you can't rush evidence either. "Hold up," Mark said around noon, pointing at the screen. "Go back about 30 seconds. I reversed the timeline, and there they were. Jeff and Ryan walking into the Riverside trailer, dressed like they were heading to a board meeting instead of a job site. The timestamp read 6:47 p.m., well after normal hours. "Look at how they're setting up," Mark muttered. The 4K clarity was better than I'd remembered. Jeff arranged papers on the conference table while Ryan adjusted his tie, both of them positioning themselves like actors blocking a scene. They sat down, left an empty chair, and began talking to absolutely nobody. "They're staging a client meeting," I said, my stomach turning. "Watch Ryan. He's taking notes like someone's giving instructions." Jeff reached into his jacket, pulled out a napkin of all things, and started writing. The camera caught every detail. The date he scrawled, the amount, even the theatrical way he folded it like it was some kind of receipt. "Document everything," Mark reminded me, sliding over a legal pad. I logged the timestamp, file location, and export settings. Mark showed me how to generate hash values, digital fingerprints that proved the footage hadn't been altered. Every clip got its own entry, organized like a construction schedule. The next few hours revealed a pattern. Jeff and Ryan would show up after hours, stage these fake meetings, then carefully document them in ways that supported their lawsuit's timeline. But it was the footage from our downtown project that made my hands shake. There was Jeff, crystal clear in the trailer's fluorescent lighting, opening our petty cash envelope. He thumbed through the bills, looked around, never thinking to check the ceiling corner, and slipped $300 into his breast pocket. The timestamp matched perfectly with a supply run entry in the books. "That son of a bitch," Mark growled. I exported the clip, adding it to our growing collection. Then I opened Word and started connecting dots. Each video matched to specific invoices, every staged scene tied to their lawsuit claims. The evidence was building like a well-planned foundation, solid, square, and impossible to ignore. "We need backups," Mark said. "Lots of them." He was right. I called my attorney, outlined what we'd found, and emailed her a preliminary evidence list. Then we made 3 copies of everything, one for the court, one in my safe at home, and one in Mark's gun safe across town. Nobody was going to lose this footage. For the first time since that lawsuit hit my desk, I felt something besides dread. This was leverage. Real, concrete proof that could shatter their whole con game. The clock on my desk showed 6 p.m. 41 days left, but now those days had purpose. I opened another month's folder, labeled Office Checks. "One more before we break," I told Mark, who nodded and refreshed our coffee. The footage started normal enough. Regular office traffic, nothing suspicious. Then the timestamp hit 9:47 p.m. on a Sunday, and my breath caught. A figure in dark clothes moved through our accounting office, face hidden, but build unmistakable. Jeff's build. A gloved hand entered the frame, sliding a check across my desk. The same hand reached for a pen, one of my branded ones, I noticed with bitter irony. The overhead light caught the check's surface just right, and I leaned in close enough to fog the screen. "Mark," I said quietly, "get the camera. Document exactly how we're viewing this." Mark's phone clicked, capturing the setup, the time, the file properties. We both knew what we were about to witness, and we needed it preserved perfectly. The footage kept rolling, clear as tomorrow's sunrise, while that gloved hand began to write. You ever watch one of those nature shows where a predator thinks it's alone, completely unobserved while hunting? That's exactly how Jeff looked on that footage. Totally convinced he was invisible while committing his crime. I zoomed in tight on the desk area. The 4K camera caught everything in crisp detail. Jeff's expensive watch glinting under the office lights. The careful way he arranged the checks. Even the slight tremor in his hand as he pulled out a stack of printer paper for practice. "Look at this smug bastard," Mark whispered, leaning closer. "He's actually practicing your signature first." Jeff had lined up the blank paper just so, getting the angle right. His first attempts were clumsy. Nothing like my signature. But as the timestamp crawled forward, his strokes got smoother. The flourish at the end of my name started matching the one I'd used for 20 years. "Hold up," I said, freezing the frame. "Let's document this properly." We captured everything. The camera position, the timing, the way the footage showed Jeff comparing his forgery attempts against what must have been a real check. I pulled out my vendor files, finding 3 legitimate signatures from that same week. The similarities were damning. Jeff had nailed my signature's pressure points. The way my N connected to the next letter. Even that slight upward angle I always used. Something cold and focused settled in my chest. This wasn't just evidence anymore. This was the sword that would cut through every lie they'd built. "Start the exports," Mark said, already setting up our documentation protocol. Full resolution, no compression. I worked, methodically, just like laying out tools before a big job. First came the still frames. Jeff entering the office. Jeff at my desk. Jeff's hand holding my pen. Then the slow motion sequences showing each forged signature from start to finish. Every file got tagged with its camera ID and timestamp. Mark handled the comparison sheet, lining up my real signatures against Jeff's forgeries. The similarities were so precise they'd make a handwriting expert whistle. "Get this down," I told Mark, opening our evidence memo. Forgery sequence, Sunday night. Approximately 20 minutes of footage showing premeditation and multiple attempts. The words felt good going onto paper. Solid, undeniable facts that would shred their manufactured paper trail. I could already picture the moment in court. That first frame hitting the screen. Jeff's face when he realized we had him in ultra-high definition. My hands were steady as I pulled out my phone and typed a message to my attorney. "Have what we need. Forgery caught on camera. Multiple angles. Perfect clarity." Her response came quick. "Don't celebrate yet. Admissibility standards next. Chain of custody must be bulletproof." She was right, of course. I looked at our cabinet log, tracking who had accessed the surveillance drives and when. We had good records, but good might not be enough against a desperate defense team. The clock on my desk showed just 38 days until court. More than a month, but in legal time, that was a blink. One procedural mistake could sink even the strongest evidence. "We need to document every step," I said, turning to Mark. "Every person who touched these drives, every time that cabinet was opened, every copy we made. No gaps." Mark nodded, already pulling out his notebook. "I'll start with the installation dates for each camera. You track the access log from today backwards." We settled in, surrounded by file folders and hard drives, preparing to transform this bombshell footage into courtroom-ready evidence. Because sometimes catching the snake isn't enough. You've got to prove exactly how and when you caught it. The next week felt like prepping for the most important job site inspection of my life. Only instead of checking welds and load-bearing walls, I was building an evidence fortress that had to withstand legal sledgehammers. "Every link in the chain has to be documented," my attorney said, spreading out a checklist. "Who had access to the cabinet? When were drives removed? What software did you use for exports?" Mark and I turned my office into a war room. We tracked down every serial number on those hard drives, photographed the reinforced cabinet's key system, and created a timeline of every time those drives had been accessed since installation. You know how some guys keep their tools organized enough to grab what they need in the dark? That's how thorough we had to be with these records. "Remember that camera rotation schedule you made me keep?" Mark asked, pulling out a worn notebook. "The one I thought was overkill?" I couldn't help but smile. Every month, Mark had logged which cameras were cleaned, adjusted, or replaced. He'd noted battery changes in the timestamp modules, and even recorded when we'd upgraded any firmware. At the time, it was just good practice for insurance purposes. Now it was gold. We built our case like a house. Foundation first, then structural supports, then every detail locked tight. I created spreadsheets matching camera timestamps to invoice dates. We generated hash values for every video file. Think of them like digital fingerprints that prove nothing's been altered. Mark documented our export process step by step, including screenshots of the software settings we used. When my attorney reviewed the package, she didn't sugarcoat it. "They're going to fight this hard," she warned. "Expect motions to exclude, claims of tampering, anything to keep that footage off the screen." My stomach dropped. Without those videos, we'd be back to their word against mine. Their doctored papers against my denials. That settlement email still sat in my drafts folder, tempting me like a get-out-of-jail card. I almost opened it. Almost. Instead, I closed my laptop and turned to Mark. "Get me more paper," I said. "We're doing this right." I wrote out my declaration line by line, detail by detail. 20 years of running jobs had taught me that shortcuts come back to bite you. So I laid it all out. When we installed the cameras, why we kept the footage, how we maintained the system. I attached emails from years back showing our security protocols weren't some recent invention. Mark's maintenance logs were a godsend. He'd been recording camera positions and rotations since we first installed them, complete with little sketches showing sight lines and coverage zones. Each entry had a date, time, and his initials. The kind of consistent record-keeping that screams authenticity. We organized everything into a massive exhibit binder, tabbed A through G. Every section told part of the story. Camera specifications, storage procedures, access logs, export records, verification methods. I could flip to any page and put my finger on exactly what we needed. The night before trial, Mark and I did one final review. The exhibit case sat ready, loaded with hard drives, documentation, and backup copies of everything. We'd even included photos of the cabinet's installation and close-ups of its industrial-grade locks. "You good?" Mark asked as we finished. I looked at the case, then at my watch. 6 hours until court. "Yeah," I said. "I'm done being scared." Dawn found us climbing the courthouse steps, Mark carrying our evidence like it was made of glass. The morning air had that crisp feel that comes before a long summer day. For the first time since this nightmare started, my hands weren't shaking. I watched those heavy courtroom doors swing wide. The room beyond was still empty, quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Mark set our exhibit case on the defense table, and I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't about fear anymore. This was about being ready. I've sat through plenty of tense meetings in my life, but nothing quite prepares you for watching two guys you once trusted swagger into court like they're heading to a victory party. Jeff and Ryan looked fresh from a magazine spread. Matched suits, power ties, that practiced calm that comes from thinking you've got it all figured out. They didn't even glance my way as they settled in with their attorney. You know that feeling when you're checking a level, and the bubble's just slightly off? That's how that courtroom felt. Everything looked right on the surface, but something was fundamentally wrong with the picture. Their lawyer stood up first. Tall guy with silver hair and a voice like aged bourbon. He had this way of making even the most twisted logic sound reasonable. "Your Honor," he began, "this is a simple case of profit denial and systematic financial manipulation." I watched the jurors' faces as he walked them through their manufactured story. Pens scratched against notepads when he mentioned specific dollar amounts. The court reporter's fingers moved like raindrops on a tin roof, steady and relentless. Every few minutes, Jeff or Ryan would nod at exactly the right moment, like they'd rehearsed their concerned expressions in a mirror. "Mr. Whitaker engaged in a pattern of siphoning profits," their lawyer continued, pulling out their doctored ledgers. "As you can see from these quarterly statements." My attorney's objection cut through his narrative. "Your Honor, counsel is mischaracterizing the evidence. We have video documentation that will directly contradict these claims." The judge, a no-nonsense woman with reading glasses perched low on her nose, looked up from her notes. "Counselor, are you prepared to present this video evidence?" "Yes, Your Honor. We have extensive security footage from multiple job sites that shows—" Jeff's lawyer jumped up. "Your Honor, this is the first we're hearing of any video evidence. We'll need time to review." The judge held up her hand. "We'll address evidentiary matters first thing tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp." She fixed both tables with a stern look that reminded me of my high school principal. "I expect both sides to stick to verified facts. We're not here to tell stories." When she banged that gavel, my heart was doing Carpenter B rhythms against my ribs. You ever notice how time seems to stretch like hot taffy when you're waiting for something big? That's what it felt like walking out of that courtroom. The media ambush hit as soon as we reached the hallway. Camera flashes popped like tactical strobes, and microphones sprouted in front of my face like steel mushrooms. "Mr. Whitaker, how do you respond to the allegations? Is it true you denied your partners their fair share?" I kept my mouth shut and my eyes forward, remembering every time I'd told my crew that actions speak louder than words. Mark flanked me like a seasoned bodyguard, helping clear a path through the press gauntlet. Back at the office, I sat alone with our video presentation. The cursor blinked at me while I labeled each sequence: meeting staging, cash handling, document review, check processing, and finally, forgery demonstration. Each title represented another nail in their coffin, but they had to be presented perfectly. When I finally made it home, the kitchen was dark and quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. My son had left a note. "Good luck tomorrow, Dad. We believe in you." I stuck it on the fridge next to his Little League photo from years back. Setting my alarm for 5 a.m., I couldn't help but stare at that last slide title on my laptop. Forgery demonstration, loop. The timestamp and camera details were crystal clear. The image quality sharp enough to count the hairs on Jeff's knuckles as he practiced my signature. Morning hit different that day. You ever notice how some days just feel weighted with purpose? Like every minute's been machined to exact tolerances? That's how it felt walking into that courtroom at 8:45 a.m., Mark right beside me carrying our exhibit case like it held pure gold. The room filled up fast. Seemed like word had gotten around about the video evidence. I caught a few contractors I knew sliding into the back rows, probably wondering if their own job site cameras might catch something someday. "All rise," the bailiff called out, and we did our courthouse choreography. Once everyone settled, my attorney stood up smooth as silk. "Your Honor, we're prepared to present video evidence from multiple secured locations." He gestured to our tech setup. "Each clip is timestamped, verified, and corresponds directly to financial records already entered into evidence." The judge nodded. "Proceed." The lights dimmed, and that first clip hit the screen like a thunderclap. There was Jeff Morton, sitting at our Oak Ridge site trailer's conference table with Ryan Hale, performing their little theater piece. The timestamp read clear as day, Tuesday, 2:15 p.m. No client in sight, though they'd logged a crucial investor meeting for that exact time. "Note the date and time," my attorney said. Cool as December, he held up their cooked books, which matches this alleged client consultation and subsequent receipt. The camera caught Jeff scribbling on a napkin, then filing it away with a wink to Ryan. I glanced at Jeff's face. That confident smirk had cracked just a hair. You know that moment when someone realizes they forgot to cover their tracks? That's what I was watching, in real time and high definition. The next sequence rolled. Jeff at the office safe, counting out petty cash. The envelope goes into his jacket, not the bank deposit bag. Clear as sunrise. Then Ryan shows up later. Timestamp showing 7:45 p.m. And they split the take right there under our insurance-mandated cameras. A juror in the front row actually leaned forward, squinting like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. The Sucks courthouse deputy crossed his arms, his face going hard as granite. I spotted a reporter in the gallery writing 4K footage in his notebook, underlined twice, but the real hammer drop was still coming. The screen filled with our office view. Jeff alone at my desk after hours. First practicing my signature on scratch paper, getting the loops just right, then pulling out our company checkbook. The resolution was so sharp you could read the check numbers, see the pressure points where his pen hesitated. My attorney put up a split screen, my actual signature from our corporate docs on one side, Jeff's forgery on the other. "Your Honor, we've had these analyzed by a certified handwriting expert, whose report is included in your materials." The judge peered over her reading glasses, studying the comparison. The oxygen seemed to thin out in that courtroom. You could have heard a paint chip fall. Jeff's lawyer shot up like he'd sat on a nail. "Your Honor, these videos lack context. We need time to—" "The timestamps and metadata provide quite clear context, Counselor," the judge cut in. She studied the screens a moment longer, then straightened her robe. "We'll take 20 minutes while I review the admissibility challenges and outstanding motions." The gavel cracked once. I sat still as stone while everyone shuffled out for the break. Through the gallery window, I could see reporters already sprinting for their phones. Mark gave my shoulder a quick squeeze as he passed. The kind of wordless support that means more than speeches. 20 years of building houses had taught me that the best work happens in the quiet moments between the noise. So I just breathed, watched the dust motes dance in the projector beam, and waited for the gavel to call us back. When the bailiff called us back in, I noticed Jeff had loosened his tie. Ryan kept wiping his palms on his suit pants. You ever watch someone realize their house of cards is about to catch fire? That's exactly what I was seeing. The judge settled into her chair, adjusted her glasses, and cleared her throat. The room went cemetery quiet. Having reviewed the evidence and considered counsel's arguments, I'm prepared to rule on several matters. She shuffled some papers, but I could tell she didn't need them. First, regarding the admissibility of video evidence. The defense has demonstrated proper chain of custody, intact metadata, and clear relevance to the financial claims at issue. The footage is admitted in its entirety. Jeff's attorney started to rise, but she cut him off with a raised hand. Save your objection, counselor. The authentication is bulletproof, and the content speaks for itself. She turned to the comparison of signatures. The forensic analysis confirms what the video clearly shows. Systematic forgery of Mr. Whitaker's signature on multiple financial instruments. This finding alone is dispositive. My chest loosened for the first time in weeks. You know that feeling when you finally get the last beam secured on a difficult frame? Like that, but 1,000 times stronger. Given the video evidence of staged meetings, misappropriated funds, and documented forgery, she continued, this court finds the plaintiff's claims not only meritless but fraudulent in nature. She looked directly at Jeff and Ryan. The lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice, but she wasn't done. Her voice took on an edge I'd heard before, the same tone my dad used when he caught someone stealing tools. Furthermore, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for criminal investigation. The evidence suggests multiple felony violations, including but not limited to fraud, forgery, and theft by deception. Ryan's face went whiter than fresh drywall. Jeff blinked hard, like someone had just hit him with a spotlight. Their lawyer started stuffing papers into his briefcase, probably already planning his withdrawal from the case. I sat there, letting relief wash over me like that first cool rain after you've spent all day pouring concrete in August heat. Mark squeezed my shoulder again, and this time I let myself feel the full weight of what we'd accomplished. The moment we stepped into the hallway, reporters swarmed like yellow jackets at a job site. Camera flashes popped, microphones thrust forward. Mr. Whitaker, how did you know to check the security footage? What's your response to the criminal referral? Will your company survive this scandal? I just kept walking, but I caught a glimpse of a news alert on someone's phone. Con artists in hard hats. Local contractors exposed in $1 million fraud attempt. The headline would have been funny if it hadn't cost me so many sleepless nights getting here. My phone started lighting up before I even reached the parking lot. First came the suppliers. Always knew you were straight up. Account terms restored. Let us know what you need. Then the clients. Can we restart the Wilson project? Sorry we doubted you. When can your crew return? Back at the office, I gathered the staff in our break room. Some had been with me since that first rusty pickup truck, and I could see the relief in their eyes matched mine. We're back to full operations tomorrow, I told them. Every project, every schedule, everything we do best. The room broke into grins and shoulder claps. Sarah from accounting actually wiped away a tear. My attorney called with the financial breakdown. Restitution would hit Jeff and Ryan hard. Between legal fees, damages, and their frozen assets, they'd be feeling this for years. Justice comes with compound interest, he said, and I had to smile at that. That evening, after everyone had gone home, I stood in my office organizing the exhibit binders. Solid proof that truth might take its time, but it always finds daylight. I walked to the whiteboard where we'd been tracking court dates and trial prep, erased it all with 2 swipes and wrote in fresh marker, "Rebuild reputation." The next morning's headlines hit like a sledgehammer to concrete. My phone buzzed with notifications from every local news outlet, each one carrying some variation of Morton and Hale, the con artists who nearly stole a legacy. The business section of our town paper ran a front-page spread with their mugshots side by side. You ever watch those nature shows where the prey finally realizes it's been caught? That's the look in their eyes. I scrolled through my morning coffee, watching their world implode in real time. The State Contractors Board suspended their licenses pending investigation. The Chamber of Commerce quietly removed their names from the membership roster. 3 different radio stations ran call-in segments about trusting your contractor. And let me tell you, the callers weren't kind. Mark texted me a link to an industry job board. Jeff and Ryan's interviews for positions 2 states over had vanished overnight. Funny how fast doors slam when fraud hits the headlines. Got something you need to see, my attorney said when he called. Court just finalized the restitution order. I sat at my desk, coffee cooling, as he walked me through it. The judge hadn't just ordered payback. She'd authorized asset seizure. Jeff's lake house, Ryan's investment accounts, their fancy cars, all of it frozen, then liquidated to cover damages. This covers your legal fees? I asked. And then some, he replied. We're looking at full operational recovery plus punitive damages. They'll be feeling this one until retirement age. I hung up and just sat there for a minute, letting it sink in. 20 years ago, when I was still working out of that rusty pickup, my dad told me something I never forgot. Son, in this business, your name is everything. Guard it like gold. The memory pushed me into action. I grabbed my keys and headed to the yard where Mark was already waiting, thermos in hand. The paint crew had their scaffold set up, carefully peeling off the old vinyl lettering from our fleet. "Ready for this?" Mark asked, handing me a coffee. I nodded, watching them prep the first truck. The morning sun caught the fresh primer coat, and I could smell that sharp, sweet mix of solvent and possibility. You know that scent. Like every new project carries its own kind of promise. The crew chief walked us through the new design. Bold white lettering, clean lines, my full name front and center. No more abbreviated versions, no hiding behind corporate speak. Just honest work backed by an honest name. "That'll do," I told him, shaking his hand. The pride in his grip matched mine. Craftsman recognizing craftsmanship. Mark and I stood back as they worked. Truck by truck, each fresh coat of enamel gleamed a little brighter than the last. The guys took extra care with the edges, making sure every letter stood sharp against the paint. By mid-morning, half the fleet wore their new identity. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos for the website refresh. The sun hit the lacquer just right, making each truck look like it was lit from within. 20 years of building, nearly lost to paper lies, now restored in steel and paint. Opening my laptop on the tailgate, I drafted a simple email to send to our client list. "Work speaks." That's all it needed to say. The trucks behind me said the rest. The paint crew was finishing up the last vehicle when I caught that familiar scent again. Fresh enamel mixed with morning air. I stepped back for one final look at the fleet, all lined up with my name catching the light. Clean, uncompromised, built to last. Mark walked up beside me, both of us quiet for a moment. The lacquer was still drying, but I could already see our future in that shine. I thought about Jeff and Ryan, about paper trails and karma, about truth finding its own way home. "You know what, Mark?" I said, watching sunlight play across those fresh painted letters. "The truth always cashes the final check."